And when they sit down, I need you to clap. All right? So let's do a little practice. What does that sound like?
Good. Let's hear it. All right, good enough. Now, if all that clapping gets you thirsty, we do have water over here, generously provided by the story gnomes. Drink too much of that water, there are bathrooms down the hall, generously provided by the story gnomes. That's our rule here. Now, our storytellers are going to come up and they're going to talk about stories of guts. They're going to talk about stories of questions, decisions. I'm guessing right now they might have a question whether they made the right decision to get up here and tell a story. We're not going to get there. Now, when it gets
almost time, they're going to be up here 5 to 7 minutes. When it's almost done, they're going to get a warning.
1 minute warning.
No. The whistle. Get the whistle, Story Gnome Jr. This will be their warning, and it'll be your warning as we go today, too. Delightful. Not as grumpy sounding as I would like, but we can deal with that. All right, so settle down. We're going to introduce our first storyteller, Mr. Stephen Taylor. All right, so let's get that practice. Let's get that clapping going. Good. Thank you.
So, I'm heading to a job interview. And the roads are icy. It's one of those Minnesota winter mornings that are very cold. We get a lot of those. And the traffic's bad. And I'm late. And I'm going to 46 and Bryant. There used to be a cafe there, Studio 2 Cafe. And I'm flustered. And I get there and I take a deep breath. Because the dude that's interviewing me looks a lot like the dude from The Big Lebowski. Glorious head of hair and everything. And to put that into some context, he actually used to be the lead guitarist for a semi-famous hair metal band, and his stage name was Nicky Wicked. That's Nicky with 2 C's and 2 K's in Wicked. So I get through this interview somehow, and he offers me the job on the spot. And this is all seeming very normal to me for some reason, except when I get up and he gets up, I go to shake his hand, and he does this. And this is pre-COVID. And he says, dude, I don't want to shake your hand. I've got pneumonia. And this comment is sticking with me over the weekend when I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to take the job or not. And it's not that I'm worried about he's contagious or not. He was taking antibiotics, but something was off. And I'm going to skip over the sleepless nights and the soul searching I did and tell you I took the job. Nicky Wicked, right? Well, there were other reasons. The location was awesome, and it was a good opportunity for me. So, fast forward to another very cold Minnesota morning. We get a lot of those. And I'm driving to my new job, and I'm giving myself this time plenty of time to get there. I arrive on the nose. I get there, but the dude's not there. I have 2 emails sitting in my inbox. The first is from him, and it says, antibiotics aren't working at the hospital. Spoiler, it wasn't pneumonia that we were dealing with. It was cancer. But we didn't know that. I didn't know that. He didn't know that. What we knew was that he was very sick. And the second message that I got was also from him. And it said simply, are you comfortable speaking in front of other dudes? Now, me being new on the job, I want to impress. And I'm a fabric guy, right? He's in the hospital. I want to help. What's my role? If he needs me to lead a meeting or do a sales presentation, gosh darn it, I'm there for him. So I type, sure, hit send. A few minutes later, I get this email back, and it says, that's awesome. I appreciate you stepping in because I'm scheduled to MC at a conference tomorrow. Deets below.
Okay, if you're not hearing what's wrong with that, I'm going to repeat that. I'm emceeing at a conference tomorrow. Deets below. So he is an internationally renowned speaker. Me? No. Him, been on the conference circuit for years. Me, never spoken at a conference in my life. This is a highly technical, specialized conference. Me, new on the job, no idea what they're going to be talking about. And then finally, I have this recurring nightmare where I'm thrust on stage, and I have no idea what my lines are. Hello, nightmare. So it's a good thing that I hadn't turned down that other job offer that I had received, because I walked in that next morning, bright and early, and I stand up tall, and I say, I am not the dude. But you know what? I say that to a room full of 400 people. I was at the conference. And I'm saying that because I'm not thinking they're going to mistake me for him. He's like 3 inches taller than me, long hair, deep booming voice. I'm saying that for myself because I'm showing up as me. And you know what? For that day at least, it was enough. At least I did get invited back. The dude, he sadly never made it back to that conference. He made his final exit not long after. He was a giant of a mensch, a catalyst for the community. And I know I'm not alone in saying that I still miss him. Sorry. I went on to do a lot of interesting things at that conference, both as MC and chair, like bring in speakers to talk about how to make technology more diverse and represent marginalized or underrepresented groups in marginalized communities, and how to build sustainability into technology. Shameless plug, we're actually still doing that. If you Google Code Freeze in the University of Minnesota Software Engineering Center, you'll find the conference. Unofficial announcement because the details have not yet been released, but pay attention as they will be soon. You know, sometimes I think I was fated to do that conference. And other times, I think I was just destined to show up as myself in some really messy and challenging life situations, no matter where they are. And maybe that's enough. Either way, thank you.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. Come on, everybody. Applaud, applaud. Hey, thank you, thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Stephen. I am not the dude. I am definitely not the dude either. Wow, great, great. Oh, stories. I'm willing to bet we have these stories working in us too, like I am not the dude. I am not the one. Why did I say yes to this? What am I supposed to be doing? But there was this story that came out of that uncertain situation that maybe this time maybe it is enough to show up as me. So that's an example of a story we can trust, right? Thank you, Stephen. What are stories we can trust? I think they always offer us a more generous sense of who we are than we might afford ourselves. I think they offer meaning without certainty, without boxes, without limiting. I think they don't require conformity. They see uniqueness. They don't say there are some people who are winners and some who are losers. They see us. They see people, these peoply people, and they say, yes, yeah. Do it. You can do it. So I bet you have your version of stories that you can trust like that, and I bet you have the others, the little monkeys and the outside stories that say, be very afraid, right? There's not enough. You're not enough. Different versions of that. And that's, again, why we're here practicing together, to hear different things reflected back to us and help us come back to those stories that we know are worthy of our trust. It was interesting that so many people that I asked and I thought, I cannot wait, I would love to hear them tell a story. They would say, well, why would anyone want to hear my particular story for this series? And there was a theologian named Frederick Buechner who wrote a memoir called Telling Secrets. And he asked that very same question. Why would someone want to hear my particular story with all the warts and all the particular, all the details? Like, it doesn't seem that interesting. But he said it's actually exactly in those particulars that we also see ourselves. So we find something about ourselves in someone else's story. And not only that, Buechner said that is how God makes God's self known in a real way. So there are these universal truths, these universal things about love and life and this big vision for this world that it's always being created and new. There are these big truths, and we can hear about them as ideas. We can hear about, I love you because I love you because I love you. But the way it gets into us is because someone loves us here and now. Like, we feel it, we experience it in a local way, as Chris Lillahide talked about at the Falls a couple weeks ago. We need to feel it through particular people, and live it through our particular stories. So these particular stories, our Peopley stories, matter. And we're just so much poorer when we are too busy to stop and notice and stop and listen to the particular stories that are all around us every day, even outside in the world, on the leaves on the sidewalk, in the particular face in front of us at breakfast that is so easy to overlook in our busy mornings. So that's why we get together and we practice noticing and pausing, and we practice sharing our stories. And because sometimes it can be hard to share something that matters to you, share how you're really doing, how you're really feeling. So we talk about practice when it's easy. This is one of our fabricisms. So we're going to practice, and I think that story now might help us out.
At the end of the row, find one of these white baskets. Inside there is a bunch of cards. Take one, pass the basket down the row. Kids, make sure you get one too. These big lugs need you. I'll give you instructions and then listen for the whistle. That will be your cue to move. The first one is easy. Find someone who has the same color card that you do. Share your name and how you got here this morning. Okay, now everyone stand up. Go!
Did you get that? Yeah, there you go. Find them basket. Grab a card. Sternum, we need a whistle. Great. We're going to share your name and how you got here this morning. This is someone with the same color. Good job. Good job. So when I say this, okay, you did your round of applause. You can say clap, clap. I'll tell you. Okay. Okay. Yep. All right, good job, good job. That was round one. 2 more rounds. Now give yourself a round of applause. Good, good. Now, I want you to find someone who has a different color card. All right, move around a bit. If you don't find anybody, come on down front here and we'll find someone for you, but a different card. And share your name and one sign of fall that you've already noticed. All right, all right, all right. Great, great, great. You feeling it? All right, applause, applause, applause. All right, third and final round, the final boss. Look, I wasn't sure you're ready for this, but there's an action on the back. So look at that action, and you're going to start doing it. Start doing it, waving over the hands, doing the feet. There you go, and you're going to find someone that's doing the same action. And this time we're going to read the question that's on. So you have 2 questions between your 2 cards, and you're each going to get a minute. So this is a 2-minute round. First minute, one of you take it. Second minute, answer the same question or a different question, all right? So actions. If you're having trouble, come down, come down. We can match you. We can match you. Grab a random person. Answer one of the questions. All right, here's the first minute. Just whistle. All right, so switch. Switch with have your other partner tell the story or the other question, one of the questions. All right, nice job, nice job. Let's applaud, let's applaud. All right, great, wonderful storytelling. So go ahead and wrap up your conversations, go back and find your seats. Put those cards back into the basket so we can use them next week. Spoiler alert, a couple more weeks of storytelling. It's time to get ready for our next storyteller. All right, remember, listening, nodding along, don't miss the people. All right, so let's give a warm welcome to our second storyteller. Show us what it's like to be brave and generous with her story. Bjorn Westgard. He's got a different story about questioning his decisions.
Good morning. Ooh, that's very loud. So I'm an ER doc, and I teach ER docs. And I will tell you that there's nobody smarter than a resident who's about to graduate. But when you start practicing, all the things that come so easily during your training suddenly become hard. And I know when I started practicing, I suddenly did not feel very smart. When I finished residency, part of my job was, and still is, to go out to rural Minnesota and Wisconsin and work in smaller town ERs. And I thought, I come from a smaller town in Wisconsin, I should be able to handle this, but instead I felt kind of alone. I was used to this large urban hospital, and here I am in small hospitals where if there's a delivery or somebody's heart stops, I'm responsible for all of it, and I figure I'm gonna have to be the dude. I'm gonna have to be the person who shows people how it's done. But I would listen to the conversations of my new colleagues and, talking about hunting and pole barns, and I would just kind of wonder about their skill set and whether I would be able to relate to them. So one of those first days that I was out, this woman comes in to one of these small ERs, very anxious, has a history of panic attacks, and I remember someone kind of walking around muttering, frequent ER visits. And so I did sort of this cursory interview and exam, and I gave her some medicine for her anxiety. And I was a little bit annoyed that I'd already met one of these familiar faces in this ER. But after a little while, one of these nurses comes up to me and she says, she doesn't look so good. And she goes, she's had a lot of stress lately, and one of her family members died last week. And in rural, small-town ERs, everybody knows everybody. And I was like, let's give it a minute. We just gave her some medicine. Let's see how she does. And then one of the healthcare techs came around and said, I don't know, do you think this could be more than anxiety? And so I kind of did a eye roll and a sigh, and I said, okay, well, let's check things out. So I did an ECG, and I looked at this heart tracing, see if maybe her heart was going on, because she had some chest sensations going on with this, and it looked a little wrong. And so then I did a blood test for the heart, and it was also like a little abnormal, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be my first heart attack that I see outside of training, and I potentially missed it. So I asked them, to pull out this ultrasound, which is something we use frequently, but they had this first generation ultrasound, size of a washing machine, screens about this big, and I start looking at her heart with this ultrasound, which is not used very much, and so everybody kind of crowds around me, and I'm looking at her heart, and it doesn't look right either. And I'm trying to figure out what I'm seeing. And as I'm staring there, the tech on my right side goes, doesn't look like that end of her heart's working very well. And then the nurse over my left shoulder is like, yeah, that doesn't seem like that's doing anything. And all of a sudden it kind of hits me. They had just called out this pattern of a Japanese octopus catching pot, which is the signature pattern of Takotsubo's cardiomyopathy, which is an emotional, stress-driven, adrenaline-driven heart attack that's pretty rare. And so I explain this to the patient, talk about our next steps, and I start making arrangements for her to go to the Twin Cities. And as part of that, I call a cardiologist. And I tell him, what we just found. And he pauses and he goes, "Where are you calling from?" And in the process, I could hear his dismissal of this place and everybody who's working there and living there. And that includes me, all of us who had just sat and made this rare diagnosis together. And I could hear an echo of my own dismissal. And I felt pretty stupid. So the patient got transferred, did well, diagnosis was confirmed. But I understood after that I wasn't supposed to be the dude. I didn't have to show everybody how it was done. I was supposed to show up and trust and listen and share and do my part. And that's what I do. That was over a decade ago, and I work in rural and urban ERs still. And I've gotten to know and love all my colleagues in many places, and I love sitting with colleagues and patients and hearing their stories and where they're from and their lives. And when I work in the cities too. And it's those ties that keep us sane. They've kept us sane through the dark days of COVID. And even now, where we're faced with staffing issues and burnout and sicker patients, it's those ties that keep me showing up. I go to work for the people. I keep showing up for the people who keep showing up with me.
Brilliant, brave. Let's give another round of applause. All right, are we letting that magic energy sink in, people? Stories are food, and I know you people like junk food. Speaking of, I'm a little hungry. I could use a little something to eat or drink, so we're gonna go find something to eat or drink.
We'll be having some over here soon, too.
Oh, good.
So
until next week.
Thank you, Story Gnomes. Yeah, we are going to have some bread and wine and snacks here in a minute. We are having communion, and we aren't doing it because we have to or because it's some kind of magic. We do it because it's one tangible way that people have been remembering those stories that are trustworthy about who they are in the world with each other, about the ties that bind, about the people we show up with that Bjorn talked about, who show up with us. So we'll be doing that in a moment, but I want to help you think about your own sacred stories, and that word sacred, I wonder what that means. I don't know what that means to you. But I suggest that if a story matters deeply to you, it's probably sacred. On the Sunday paper, there's a whole lot of words, and I couldn't decide which ones to say or share, and so I put them all down there. And I want you to look at them, and as I read them, I expect that one of these phrases will pop out at you, and you'll say, yeah, that. I relate to that. As you start wondering, what are my sacred stories that I trust, that I lean on, that I've learned from? So I'm going to read. You might want your pen. You can't see it on the screen, so I encourage you to look at it here now or later and choose one thing that jumps out. There is a depth to story that we rarely take time to ponder, let alone tell and hear. Story is how we transform pain. Story is how we make something useful out of the absurd. A sacred story is a love letter expanding your heart with kindness. A sacred story is a treasure box filled with images of what matters most. A sacred story is a map passed down through generations, directing you toward a fountain of truth. A sacred story is a medicine, a balm to relieve your fear and suffering. A sacred story is an angel in the night. A sacred story is a window that offers perspective. Sometimes a sacred story is a shield, a protector, a source of courage and love. Sometimes your sacred story is what gives you strength to face the real and present dangers of our world. Sometimes your sacred story spends years searching for you, trailing you through all your hairy days, cornering you in some blue fluorescent rehab center, looking you in the eye and saying, okay, here's the truth. For me, one of the reasons the story of Jesus is sacred, I think, is because of the big table that Jesus set in the world. He ate with all kinds of people that the Pharisees, the religious teachers, the kind of the powerful people who knew how it should be done, who were quite certain, they said, we don't eat with those people. There are pure people that you eat with and impure ones, and they aren't it. Well, that's who Jesus ate with all the time and welcomed to the table. And I think I have some of that Pharisee in me, some of that certainty, like, oh, I know how it is, and that's not it. And I start building walls. And I have part of that riffraff in me, too, that part that is riffraff, that is flawed. And so I am grateful for a story that says, yes to that, yes to all of that. Come to the table. You are the welcome and honored guest. So that's what it is now here too. You are welcome and honored guests, especially if you think you are not worthy. Special welcome to you, to these tables. So we've got several around the room. There's bread on them. There are sweets and beets on them. There is white grape juice and red wine. And I encourage you, whenever you are ready, if you are ready, to make this time work for you. Some of you might want to visit around the tables and hear some more stories, just get to know someone. Some of you might want to take the bread and the beverage back to your seat and just let it sink in. And take a pause and take a reset for yourself. So let this be what you need right now to come back to that center place that we spiral in and out towards. So welcome to these tables. And as you start, before you go, one thing I do want you to do is when you meet somebody there, as you catch people's eye, I just want you to just nod and just say yes. Okay? Just say yes to each other. All right. You can say other things too, but definitely yes. Thank you.
All right, friends. Well, I'll invite you to start heading back to your seats as you can. I know the organics bin got pulled out over there for cups and crusts and whatever, if that helps. Well, I want to share just a couple more songs. This one is called, well, this one is called Spittin' Safety Pins. It came from something that my dad used to say to me all the time, like just things were held together with spittin' safety pins. And I don't know, I kind of resonated with that. I think it feels like sometimes my life is sort of held together with spittin' safety pins, and that's about it. Yeah, so this is a song called Spittin' Safety Pins. Threadbare with patches and pain from cuts that came, mistakes been made. Oh, well, my life looks good to you, the highlights pristine. You only know what you can see. Oh, 'cause it holds together. Seems like it all holds together. It all holds together with spittin' safety pins. Ragamuffins' robes or emperor's new clothes. Is anything there at all? Don't know if you're like me, but been living my life so carefully. Oh, to hold it together feels like it all holds together. Feels like it all holds together with spittin' safety pins. The end of your rope on the edge of a blade holds together. I don't wanna live that way. I'd rather burst at the seams and go out in flames, but it's just another day. Does it have to feel like this when you're standing in the wind? Like it all holds together with spittin' safety pins. Yeah, thank you. Well, as we start to bring our time to a close, I'd encourage you to find those little white baskets once again and pop some communication cards in there. And if you brought financial gifts to support this community, that's how we stay afloat. And yeah, and it's good to do that together. And yeah, and if you're new around here, just know that there's no obligation there, and yeah, we're all just here for you. Stand up, would you? If you've been around a little bit, you've probably heard heard the band play this, and it feels like a good reminder. This is called Woven. Maybe it's a moonshot, maybe it's utopian, maybe it's never gonna be Pollyanna, optimism, or maybe we can see. Can you sing this? We are a threefold chord, one, all things in oneness itself. We will not let go, won't break with the weight, 'cause we are woven. Independent, solitary, or maybe we just don't know where to start. Oh, we let the fear in and we let the schedule win, even with the warning of our loneliness, but we are a threefold chord, one, all things in oneness itself. We will not let go, won't break with the weight, 'cause we are woven. We are a threefold chord, one, all things in oneness itself. We will not let go. You sing this? Won't break with the weight, 'cause we are woven.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, stay standing. We won't be here long, but I want you to take a real good look at that photo. Look closely. This is a photo that Jeanette Mayo in our community, who's here this morning. Thank you, Jeanette. First of all, she noticed this, right? She stopped and looked and noticed. And then she got this great picture, and then she shared it with me. And it reminds me of what I'm a part of and the stories that are reflected in your stories, the big stories that we can trust, that we are part of something beautiful. So thank you for being part of that this morning. We're getting ready to roll. Kids made these to keep stories going at home. If you noticed on the mats, and if you didn't make one and want to take one home, it has prompts in it like, tell about a time that you felt crabby or irritated. You get some good stories there. So if you didn't get one, you can make that over here. We can help you get the supplies. And next week, back here for the birthday party, and then it's the marathon, so don't come here, all right? So just a friendly reminder. We'll see ya. Thank you, everybody.